You are listening to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 118, The Player's Hierarchy of Needs. In today's episode, I discuss what players need in a game. The episode is a bit subjective, but I cover a few items which I think we can all agree we need as players. I explain each of the needs and try to offer them up in order of importance. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and today's episode is going to be the player's hierarchy of needs. But before we get to that, some updates about the podcast. So obviously, you're listening to this again. I'm back from vacation. I had a great time in Alaska, caught a ton of fish, an obnoxious amount of fish. It's almost comical, the amount of frozen fish that we brought back, about 150 pounds. It was a great time with my brothers, my dad. Wonderful trip. If you have siblings and a father and you get along with everybody, I would highly recommend doing some family vacation somewhere down the line with them. The time is just, so important, just do something with family, even with friends. Those are memories that I'm going to have for quite a while. And if you've ever been to Alaska, it's just a beautiful state. It's just like crazy beauty everywhere you go. You've got mountains in every direction that you look out. It's just like, it looks like everything's out of a postcard. Just an awesome trip. I was gone for 10 days and I'm back, and it was a blast. It was really great. The only complaint was how much sun was out there, because they have daylight from like 3:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. at this time of year. But that's not even really a complaint. But it was just a fun thing. Is you have to have blackout curtains to sleep, basically. But yeah, no, I had a great time. And again, just I'm glad to be back. Glad to be doing the podcast right now. The other update that I have is I am in direct conversation with Josh and Lori and all of them. I'm going to have a new co-host next week. I will make sure that I have a new co-host next week. And so there should be another voice on this podcast to be another person that rotates through the podcast. And then you should probably have some more episodes that are more, me with somebody else. And then you'll have just, maybe just Tom, just Josh, and then just me. So it'll be a good mix of things. It won't just be me musing on episodes. But if you've been listening and you've been an avid listener to this podcast and you've been sticking with it after Jared's left, I do appreciate it. I'm hoping I'm still providing the same good content that you've come accustomed to listening to, and listening to good topics and all that other good stuff. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is I got an email from a company. I think they do consulting work in Spain called Dracar, and they have an app for rolling dice, and it's got some stuff on, it supports different languages. It allows you to fudge rolls. It allows you to, so if you don't have dice, this is you can download it. It's an Android app or Apple app. You can go check it out at Dracar TI. That's DRAKKARTI.com/RollD, or just search RollD in the App Store and you can find it there. But just going to shout out those guys and thank you for writing into the podcast and letting us know about the app. I did take a look at it. It does look pretty cool. It's got some nice little features there. But that's going to wrap it up for the updates. So I'll get on to the main topic, which is the player hierarchy of needs. Now, I am not going to put these in any specific order, besides the first one, because I think the first one makes the most sense and everyone should agree on the first one. And also I'm probably going to miss some of these. So, if I've missed any, levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know. or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Comment on the episode. Let me know some of the other hierarchy of needs, or if you agree with these or not. But anyways, the first one, the most important one, is that players want to have fun. Okay? If you aren't having fun, then the game is miserable and you don't really want to play the game. Everybody would agree with that. That stems from not just the players, but the GM. And, you're going to have everybody at the table is there to enjoy the game. When you bring a new player to the table, if they don't enjoy the hobby, they're instantly going to be turned off from it. And you're never going to bring them back if they don't have fun at the table, if they don't have fun doing the activity at hand. So the most important thing is that players have fun. We've talked about this in the podcast and all of our previous episodes. It's first about having fun, and then it's second about all these other things that kind of are fluff on top of that. So if your party, and I'll be reminded of one of the comments we got way back when on an old YouTube episode, episode 5 of this podcast, about how it's not all about the story. Some people just like to come and roll dice and beat stuff up. And if that's your definition of fun, if that's what your players like to do, lean into it, because you got to do the things that are enjoyable for you at the table. If I don't have you enjoying anything that I've done to this point, if I don't have you enjoying the game that we're playing in some capacity, I have no way to get you to be able to become a better social role player. I have no way to get you to become a better, mental role player. I have no way to get you to become invested in emotions and all these other things that we've talked about in this podcast. You have to start with fun. The players have to be able to enjoy the activity of role playing time and time again, and then want to do more. It is a natural want that your game will evolve. Okay, it's sort of like, consider this a really crazy video game, except for you're the developer as the GM, and you get to change it anytime that you want, or you get to launch a new game anytime that you want. And your players get to experience different things by virtue of how you continue to express yourself in those games and change the games and do things differently. And so, the first thing is that you do is you hook them. That's remember your first loved video game, and remember why you enjoyed the activity or that genre. And after you've gone through that once, then you want to keep doing that. You want to keep playing that. Some are better than others, and but you still enjoy the activity. It's something that it fills your cup, as some therapists might say. It's a thing that you enjoy doing. So that's number one. The players have to have fun, and I don't think anybody could disagree with that. Again, if you do, let me know. But I think that's the most important need of a player. So once you've met that need to have fun, then these other ones come into play. And I think the next most important one, again, I didn't have these really in any order, but these are the order that I wrote them down, so I'm going to say it's the next most important one. Players want to feel like they are important to the story. Okay? This does not mean that the players need to be important to the story, but they must have the feeling as though they are impactful on the story. As long as they feel that way, then you're good. So you might have a whole bunch of people at a table who don't really enjoy the role of being the hero, or they don't enjoy the role of being the one who the story is about. Maybe they like to be ancillary. Our friend Ken is very similar to this. He likes a lot of novels and literature where the main characters in those books, the protagonists in those books, are actually not the main character of the story being told. They're important because their role is to help it get the person who's important to their goal. So he enjoys that type of story. I do not, but I prefer the story to be about me and my group of compatriots, and we work through different problems. But as long as you feel like you're important to the story, meaning that your actions directly impact things, then it doesn't matter if you tell the story about somebody else who's also important in the world. Okay, the living God, for example, that you need to protect and nurture and will eventually one day ascend and save the kingdom. Okay, that you could be a protectorate of that group or that person. And again, the story then is around you and your whole shtick, and the whole thing you might be trying to put together and portray is that people are trying to constantly kill this person and you keep protecting them. All right. Now, stories like that are hard to do, okay, by their nature, because obviously the players make a mistake, person dies. What do you do now? You've lost your main linchpin in your story. This isn't the podcast today about how do you get yourself out of that trap, but this is, the podcast saying whatever you do, the players have to be integral to the story. Maybe that's a bad ending. Maybe the thing dies, the person dies. The players are met with, a bad ending. That's the fail condition. There is a strong win-loss in that game, but the players are still integral to the story, or the story is about the players. They are important to the story. The story revolves around them. Again, not the fated group, but, perhaps just a group of people who came together and saved the world. Okay. Not necessarily, meant to do what they did, but they rose to the challenge, but that group is what the story revolves around. And as long as you keep that focus where the spotlight is, the players feel like they're impacting the game, and that they are the most important thing to the story, they are the drivers of the story, then your players will generally enjoy your games. I find that to be one of the biggest needs, and a lot of times, I wouldn't say a lot of times, but sometimes it is overlooked because you are trying to tell something, you're maybe trying to experiment with a different story, or you're trying to tell a different type of story that you enjoy, and you're ancillary to the main group that is out there doing the important stuff. Your players need to feel like the most important thing. Okay, this is shown in when we talked about NPC dialogue with other NPCs. Like, don't do it because it's not revolving around your players. Your players have no impact on that. It is just you dialoguing with yourself. So that is an example of like where you have a problem. If your players aren't at the center of the story, or if they don't feel like they're at the center of the story. If you feel like you're a spectator, you're not doing it right. The third one that I've got written here is the players want to feel like they weren't cheated. Okay. You could also say the players want to feel like they earned the win, or the players want to feel like everything was fair. And I say feel because, again, we've talked about in the podcast before why Jared and I sometimes have cheated in the past. Again, the key with cheating, if you are going to do it ever, okay, is that you never tell your players you did it. Okay, the illusion is not, as long as the players don't know it was behind the screen, the players will never feel like they lost, or they didn't earn their win. This also can work the other way as well, which is that the players defeat something way too easy. Okay, they defeat one of your big baddies way too quick, and they might feel like, well, we didn't earn the win, okay, or we were cheated, or maybe the GM we pulled some punches. You never want to make them, as long as they never feel like they have intentionally been left alive or something's intentionally been made too easy for them, then your players will never feel cheated. Okay, so like that's the most important thing. It has nothing to do with whether or not you actually cheat or not. But if things are way too easy throughout the story, let's say you don't cheat, but you make things stupid easy, like in your main boss bad guy is like a zombie. Okay, you know, your players are going to be like, this just wasn't worth the journey, the effort that we put in. You know, it feels like you kind of phoned it in. Okay, it's the same thing that happens where, like, you know, players are falling to their death and you know, or about to die, and then you come in with some sort of divine providence and save the whole group. You can do that. Okay, I'm not saying you can't do that. Okay, all these things are, you probably shouldn't do it. Okay, not you. You definitely shouldn't do it. There's only a couple things I'd probably say you definitely shouldn't do in a game, and I would defend them to the death. You know, if these work at your table, have a field day, and just, you know, have a good time. But from my experience, you know, anything that cheapens the experience, or shortens the experience, or makes leaps in ways that your players didn't expect to be there, makes a game feel less impactful. A good example of this would be, and this is one where Jared he wasn't cheating. But it felt like we didn't accomplish anything, was in Jared's game, the third Shattered Sphere. So he did a big trilogy game with mages, and he did such a good first and second part to the game. But when he got to the third game, he built this extremely elaborate world, and we got towards a point in it, and Jared sort of phoned it in. And he said, okay, I'm just going to have you guys. He started connecting dots for us, and we never felt like we earned anything. I think everybody sort of felt like we were cheated at the end, which was, we didn't figure anything out. The GM sort of just kind of laid it all in our lap and did it all for us. So that's the thing that I'm trying to get across here, which is, something that's too easy may also feel like you've been cheated, even if you were never cheated. And, you know, anything that is too easy doesn't feel earned as a player, and it never feels like you accomplished anything, which again goes back to, you don't feel important as you play through the story, which all goes back to the very first one, which is, it's just not a lot of fun if, you know, the GM's just going to walk you from point A to point B to point C. So you've got to be very, very careful when it comes to this aspect of it, because a lot of ways can feel like you were cheated or you didn't earn what you got. So just kind of keep that in mind as you go through it. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, well, you rolled a 1, but, you know, I rolled a 1 as well. You know, it's not as simple as that. But if you are going to cheat, make sure that the players don't know you're doing it. The next one is that the players want agency, or the players at least think they want agency. Okay, we've talked about the illusion of choice in games, and it's true that you're not giving the players unlimited choice. My worlds are more, you know, like theme parks. You've got very defined walls, and you can sort of interact and work your way through it. I'll, you know, sort of, you know, fancy dance my way through some of the stuff that I haven't figured out, because my theme parks aren't fully fleshed out. I'm not really sure what's in the mirror, you know, in the Hall of Mirrors, because I never actually, besides knowing that I said that it's got mirrors in it, I never actually did any design work about the Hall of Mirrors. But my players really want to go there, I'll walk with it, and I'll fancy dance, and I'll improvise with you. Because I want you to feel like you had the agency to choose that direction. Now, does that mean that the information I give you is something new? I just came up with it, pulled it out of my ass? No. Okay. It's more of, that's how you want to tackle this? Okay. Does it make sense for me to give you the information here? Sure. Okay. If you're really hunting like blood dogs down the wrong path the entire way, you're investigating all the wrong rides in the theme park, I might start presenting information to put you on the right track. Okay, so the agency is very limited, and the choice is actually very limited when you think about it. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to eventually give you the information one way or another. Okay, now, I may think that you came up with this brilliant idea and you figured it out, but you know, I want you to feel like you had choice. Like you never were funneled into any position at the start of the game. Okay, towards the end of the game, you're gonna get funneled. If you've done your story correctly, all of your decisions will start to funnel you in a direction. Okay, if you have players going in all sorts of weird direction, if you give the players a bunch of options, you give them information, they start working their way towards an answer, and then you balloon it back out with a bunch of options. Holy moly! Well, either you're like playing 4D chess and you've got some crazy thing going on at the other end of this story, or you've screwed up somewhere when you started to funnel them, and now you've presented something that opened up all these other options that you didn't expect to be there, and now your players are doing crazy stuff that doesn't make any sense. Or your players don't have interest in what you've presented to them. So again, they should want to feel like they've got choices at the beginning of the game, that they are impacting every decision along the way. Okay? Again, it goes back to being important. That feeling of agency is more important than the actual agency you give the players. That giving them the push and saying you can do it. You can go any way you want to go. Like go fly from the nest and find the answers. Okay? They do find answers. They find the answers you want to give them. So that's sort of how the agency thing works. And again, unless you tell your players, yeah, no, I'm just giving you the answers either way, that would be cheating your players. Okay? That's an example of doing it, but you know, if they don't ever have that concept behind them, and again, you're probably not, the truth is that you're probably not leaping too far. I mean, if your leaps are crazy, like your players go into some crazy cave and they're like, they fight a dragon at the bottom of it, and you know, they're dog tired, and then there's a man who's like selling potions in the bottom of the cave behind where they fought the dragon. That man just happens to know about the poison used to kill the king. That's really crazy and far-fetched. And your players know, like, the gig is up at that point. Okay, your players will know what is up if you do that. So, yeah, again, give them the choices they want to make. If they want to go to the cave, they want to go fight the dragon, are you going to have something after the dragon? Is there something after the dragon, or did your players just do that? You know, did their actions have meaning at the end of that? They chose that direction, but is there something more? And if you want them to keep going further down the path that they've chosen, make sure to give them more. But don't give them so much that they're lost often to oblivion and they have no idea where else to go. Just give them the options to choose a bunch of different things. And eventually they'll kind of work their way towards the correct answer. Because that agency piece, man, it's a tricky beast. And even, I would say, even in a sandbox game, you might say, well, the players have true agency in sandbox games. They don't. Okay, the players have some agency in sandbox games. They've got what seems like a lot more in sandbox games. But you know, I can do the Curse of the Mummy in the main town or in the desert town. I can do the Curse of the Mummy anywhere. You pick where you want to do it. You pick the setting. I'll make the Curse of the Mummy work. All right, that's my job. All I'm giving you the agency to do is pick your setting. Just to have a ball. So again, that's, you know, or if you want to do a side story or something like that, yeah, I can put together a side story. I can do something for you. You know, you've chosen that's something that's interesting to you. I will go ahead and put it together for you, and you feel like as a player you feel great, and as a GM you feel great because you're letting your player feel like they picked the direction to go in the story. The last one that I have, or I guess second to last one here, is that your players want wow moments. Okay, and these come in many different forms. The most impactful ones, in my opinion, are the ones, they're the ones that your players talk about after the game ends. Okay, you have a great battle, and the night ends, and your players can't shut up about the night. They're talking about every move. They're like, "Oh man, I can't believe you critted, on that roll, man, that's so clutch," or "Oh man, when you played Cloak of Daggers, or whatever, spell." I'm just throwing out basically words here, but those are the things that you strive for. That you actually continue to play for. It's almost like the rest of the game, you're like a junkie playing the rest of the game, and you're waiting for that one moment that you're like, "Oh man, that was just the greatest thing ever." And your goal as a GM is that you're trying to hit as many opportunities to make those moments where you see your players light up and they're mystified and they're just like they're so immersed in what you've put together and what you've done and what you've presented, and they're lightning focused on it. They're ready to do anything. They're going to follow your story. They're going to engage with your story 100%, because of these moments. And that's it. Like, your players want those wow moments. Like, I can name so many good ones. I can name ones from horror games where I was scared out of my mind. I can name ones from other games where Jared's hit emotional tones, and like not just like I'm sad because the game is here, but because Jared actually had a very impactful scene that was there, or you have these big epic fights, or the culmination of your journey. These are the wow moments that you play for. You don't get them every game session. Okay, you probably don't. You get spotlight moments, and that's important because that makes your players feel important. But the wow moments are the ones that take the group away. That your group is left speechless. They're talking about the game after it's done, and they can't wait till that next session. They're brimming with anticipation about the next session. If you're telling a sandbox game, these are the types of moments that you have basically created such inspiration in your players that they're planning their next plot in the next game, 20 steps ahead, trying to work out their next, path in the game. Okay, wow moments are not just leveling your character up. They are literally like, they are almost akin to like the group literally exploding and gaining a level. Okay, like as a group itself, like you've like achievement unlocked. You did it. And I think every player seeks out those wow moments after you've been playing for a while. You start to see them. You start to see how things come together. And I mean, those are I think, had I never had any of those wow moments, I don't know if I would have stuck with the hobby as long as I have. But those wow moments have made the journey of gaming so bright and vibrant and just so exciting, because you're always looking for that in the next game. You don't know when you're going to get which game you're going to get it, or which session you're going to get it. And they after you've seen a couple of them, you're trying to sort of outdo them or bring in new ones that are also very impactful. But those wow moments are sort of what you end up playing for, and I always feel like that is something that your players want and need. And finally, your players may want more. Okay, I just listed off 6 things here, five or six things. You might think of other ones that your players want. I can't think of every need that I would want in the game. But I think if I had those 5, I would generally feel very good about any game I played in. But if you have other ones that you know of, and other ones that you like to embrace, or that when you've played in a game, if you're a GM or if you're just a player listening to this, what have been those things that have made you, that you feel like are something that you need when you play the game, that make the game enjoyable for you? Level Up Your Gaming Podcast at gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Again, these are the things that I try to hit when I'm GMing a game, and these are the ones that I say, hey, for you, maybe these are some things that you might also agree are important to hit to make players enjoy the game as well. But that's going to wrap us up for the week. So like I said, you can comment on the episode, Level Up Your Gaming Podcast at gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. We are also on YouTube. Again, stay tuned next week for a new co-host. I might have all 4 of them on. See how the recording schedule works out for that. But otherwise they'll stagger in. Also go ahead and review the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, recommend it to a friend. If you listen to it with a group of coworkers, you've got a coworker, post on a Slack channel, do something like that. Spreading the word of mouth is the best way to spread the podcast as a whole, or share it on your Facebook. That's going to wrap us up for the week. So thank you for listening and have a good week.